So thank you for joining us today for a conversation about customer experience strategies that can impact your revenue growth. So why are we having this conversation? Well, we've heard from several manufacturers. My regional director, Jeff Glimpse, just heard this on Tuesday that from manufacturers that their orders are down. And the market seems to be softening, especially in the ag industry. For some of you, this might not be the case right now, but others we know are fearing their sales and marketing efforts are not producing results. So this virtual masterclass is focused on that challenge, and we have an amazing partner who has experience in this area, actually amazing partners, I should say. So now focusing on customer experience may not be the solution for you, but I'm happy you're here to see what it's all about because it probably is. So if you want to go to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about housekeeping. So everybody has been muted to keep the background noise down. We're going to ask you to use your Q&A text box to ask questions, as well as it's going to be an interactive presentation. So go ahead and enter your information into the Q&A text box on your GoToWebinar panel. Also, this webinar is being recorded. A link will be distributed to you so that you can check out the great information that's being presented today, again at another time. So if you want to move to the next slide. Kansas Manufacturing Solution, if you want to go back one slide for me, Brendan. We're a business consultant for manufacturers in Kansas. We focus on people, process, and operations. Broad categories, I know, but we have internal and external resources to focus on many of the challenges that you may be experiencing. The next, you can go to the next. You can go to the next one. So we're getting there. We're getting there. One reason manufacturers work with us is we succeed when they succeed. So we're held accountable for our performance by an independent third party who confirms the value we provide our clients. So our neck is sort of out there, you might say, on every project. We want to make sure that we do well because we're being watched, and so that has great implications for you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and Brendan and turn it over to you and let you take over and talk about customer experience.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Phil, for inviting me today. And I've got this fun game that I like to play that is called Stump the Teacher. And with that being said, I have actually several of my favorite experts on the call with me today. I have Nikki, Kathy, Darren, and Sean that have all joined us, and we may have a couple of others that are popping in throughout our conversation today. And these folks are the experts in customer experience. And so what I'm going to ask from a housekeeping perspective as we go, as Phil mentioned, we're going to be very interactive. We want this to be a masterclass, really, for you, which means it's about asking questions, making sure that any points that you don't understand, you ask for clarity. And one thing about how grown-ups learn that I've learned in developing people throughout the years is that if you don't capture a thought immediately when it comes to your mind, then it has a tendency to just kind of scooch away and we forget about it, particularly if something else happens to pop up. So I'm going to ask you, if something comes up that you want to clarify or you've got a question, make sure you chime in on the questions box. So if you take a look over on your control panel, you will see that there's a whole bunch of different tabs and options there. One of them is questions, one of them is chat. So the chat is where the moderators are going to be talking amongst ourselves and letting one another know if there's spinach in our teeth. And then the questions is where we're going to be referring to often to hear what you all are saying. So I encourage you to familiarize yourself with that box because there will be a test. Okay, just going to let you know that. All right, now with that, I am going to go ahead and take away cameras. And if y'all could just shut yours off real quick because we want to be able to see the screen. We've got a lot of fantastic information that we are going to cover, talking about strategies for top line growth in your operation. Now, one of the first things that I want to make sure that we spend time on today is a discussion of how people have changed post-pandemic. So if you think about it, I mean, we can even think about how our own behavior has changed since the pandemic happened. But over and over, when I talk to business owners, they will relate to me how it seems as if so many of the things that they had figured out in 2019, well, they're not working the same way that they used to. And people are just struggling a bit or feeling uncertain or unsure how to navigate in our new climate. So what I'm going to ask you to do is really focus on things that you want to improve about your own customer experience, and just understanding how philosophically people are just approaching business a little bit differently now. And our promise to you is, during the time that we have together today, our goal is to help you really recognize those small shifts that have impacted your buyer, to allow you to adapt your approach to support your buyer of today. This will lead then to increased top line revenue, and evidently, or at the and next, we're going to end up with increased bottom line profits as well. Easy for me to say. Now, with that, I'm going to ask that you do me a favor and silence all of your devices and just really devote the next hour and a half to your business, because we recognize that you are making a significant investment. Now, with that, as you're making this investment with attention, I'm going to promise you there are several gems that we are going to deliver throughout our conversation today. And I will ask you to just keep an eye on what those are. Have your notebook handy as well as we're talking through these things, because there's probably a lot of areas that you are going to want to jot down and take some notes. Now, also, we are going to share the recording with you tomorrow, as well as the slide deck, because there are several slides throughout our presentation today that you can actually use as worksheets, because again, this is designed as a masterclass. I am going to also share with you that I've got a little bit of a bonus for those of you that stay to the end. There's going to be a special offer waiting, so you're going to want to make sure that you stick around for that. Not to mention, the last 15 minutes of our conversation today will be devoted to Q&A, which is where you have the chance to get your specific questions answered about CX in your business. And remember, I've got some incredible experts on the call today. So many of the questions, if it lines up with their specific area of expertise, you're going to have some of the best thought leaders in the business to answer those for you. Now, let me just share with you why you really want to pay attention for the next 90 minutes. First and foremost, you are going to discover the 80-20 rule that drives a profitable customer experience. You are also going to understand some of the keys to expanding that customer lifetime value, one of the most critical metrics to business success. I'm going to share with you some avenues for immediate growth that I bet you are leaving behind right now. And we don't want to let that happen. So my goal is to make it clear where you can capture unrealized opportunities by the time you leave here today. And then also, we want to help you understand what the path to that incredible CX can mean within your customer base in terms of creating a free sales team. And you are in the right place at the right time if you are currently at a plateau with your revenue and you are looking for avenues for growth. Perhaps you are experiencing lower than normal conversion rates on your inbound opportunities, or you're finding that customer retention, it may be keeping you stuck at a current revenue. Now, you remember I told you that we were going to have a test of how well you found that questions box. So I'm going to ask right now for you to vote on number 1, 2, or 3, based on what it is that motivated you to join today. So are you currently at a plateau? Are you experiencing that reduced conversions on inbound opportunities? Or retention is keeping you stuck? So go ahead, use the questions pane and chime in. Okay, we're hearing from our audience. We're looking at ones. Oh, we've got a pretty varied group here. We've got some 1s, 2s, and 3s. All right, so with that, we're going to cover some great information that's going to help you no matter where you may be within your own business. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot number 4. I'll give you the option of adding that one. Are you currently challenged with a culture that says CX isn't my responsibility? That one's kind of a biggie. So I'll give you a chance to chime in if that one's there. Okay. And why we are your connection to your perfect advisor. As I mentioned, I've got some amazing people on the call with me today. And I started doing sales and marketing in 2001 within small businesses up to mid-sized companies, and I've even had a few Fortune 100s under my belt. I formed my own business, SalesWorks, in 2007 with a partner, and have since launched a new venture that is called solutionbrokers.us. And my goal is to be your connector in chief to the perfect advisor to where you are at in your business right now. And understand that my area of expertise is sales and marketing. That's what I do all day long. Been there, done that, got a closet full of t-shirts. And with that in mind, that's part of the reason I brought other experts to the table today that can answer the questions, because CX goes way beyond just sales and marketing. And I want to talk to you about how that's going to happen today, if I can keep things moving forward. In 2001, I want to begin with a quick story because it's a little bit of a cautionary tale that illustrates the importance of CX within your business. We had a fantastic client that was in the distribution business, specifically with sheet metal for HVAC companies. And this company was a sales and marketing machine. And they tracked everything. They had an incredible CRM. They had systems in place. They monitored their metrics, and they were all in on marketing. And let me tell you, they had it going on. They were bringing in a lot of new business, but their revenues were stagnant. They actually weren't growing in spite of bringing in a lot of new accounts. Well, after an intensive deep dive into their operation, they discovered that the reason that they were plateauing, it had nothing to do with their sales and marketing, but everything to do with one step of their process that was in the order packaging that was creating small crimps in an occasional sheet, not even all of them. So it wasn't enough that people were really picking up the phone and calling and complaining, but it was enough to impact their desire to reorder. And it even affected their retention on longtime clients. So the reason why we spend so much time talking about customer experience as it relates to sales and marketing is you have got to have an incredible customer experience in order for your customers to not only stay with you and grow, but also to tell others about how amazing you are. And I want you to do something for me. Imagine what it looks like in your business when you have an incredible customer experience and you are attracting and engaging your perfect buyer in an organic and seamless customer experience. I'm going to ask you to think about what changes in your business when that happens. Take just a minute. Imagine the Jeopardy music is playing softly in the background. Just jot down a few thoughts, because it's important that you really connect with your why. We're going to be talking today about a number of different things that affect your customer experience, and none of them are easy fixes. I wish I could say that they were. Many of them take a little bit of time and effort. I am going to share with you some quick hits that can have an immediate impact. And then I'm also going to share with you game-changing strategies that can transform your organization. But with that, it is so important that you connect with your why you would do this, because that is what is going to keep you connected to doing the work that's necessary to achieve the transformation possible. And let's start our conversation today with a specific topic of how have your own purchase habits changed post-pandemic. So I want you to think about one thing that you are doing differently about how you are buying, how you are engaging with vendors. Okay, give me a show of hands of if you are, how many of you are regular consumers of Amazon Prime? Give me a quick show of your hand. You've got over on the control panel, you've got a spot where you can wave at me. Are you using Amazon? Okay. How about how many of you are finding yourself hitting the interwebs a little bit more than you used to? Okay, got a few more. All right. What about how many of you will not buy something without looking up online reviews? Okay, and a few more. The thing that's really interesting about how people have changed is there are so many different things, everything from how we research, how we look at our problems, how we engage in community groups, discussion groups, any number of factors have shifted within our own purchase behavior. So is it any wonder that we're finding things changing with how our buyers are engaging with us? And I'm going to tell you that one of the absolute best investments you can make right now is quality market research. And the thing about market research is you want to understand the specific insight about how your buyers have moved in either how they approach their running their own businesses, how they're looking to solve problems, how they're making decisions, what information they're looking for that helps them figure out where your product is going to fit into their own operation. That's all the kind of stuff that you need to discover about your absolute perfect buyer. Market research will pay for itself tenfold when it's done in the right way, which is again focusing on who the right customer is. And we are going to spend a bit of time talking about that today. So what I want you to think about is how you are going to survey and focus on your absolute perfect buyer. And there's something interesting that you're going to find about your buyer of today. They basically fall into three primary categories. You have your first category that is problem aware and solution aware, and it's roughly 5% of the available market. These are your inbound opportunities. So they're the folks that are looking on the Googles, they're tracking you down on the interwebs, and then they're reaching out and asking questions or inquiring about products or requesting a quote. That is roughly 5% of the market. Now, I don't know about you, but I kind of get excited when I hear that, okay, that's 5% of the market. What's the potential out there if I focus on looking at the people that are problem aware, but maybe they don't know about my solution and how great it would be for them? That percentage of the market is 30%. And that's who you reach with your outbound marketing. And the third category is the rest of them, where they don't know they've got a problem and they don't know what the solution is yet. And this is where your content marketing starts to play in, where people in your industry can start to become aware of what the possibilities are through having a solution like yours. And when you look at how marketing is shifting, and I want you to think about that problem unaware, solution unaware as I talk through this next slide. What's interesting about marketing today, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, much like I'm sitting here chatting with you. And my cell phone is sitting next to me so I can keep track of time. And that is all that I had open. And during the conversation, I was chatting with my friend about where I could find rhubarb plants for my garden. What do you think showed up in my inbox via email, on my Facebook feed, and being fed to me when I went into Google less than an hour later? If you guessed recipes about rhubarb, locations of nurseries, I was fed no less than 5 options tied to rhubarb. And that is how marketing is working for that group that is either problem aware, solution unaware, or problem unaware, solution unaware. People start talking, and then the internet starts feeding them all of these different things for them to consider that they may or may not want to pay attention to, which leads to another shift that's taking place in marketing, which is the number of impressions that people are receiving during the course of a day. So prior to 2019, I think it was actually 2017, we had about 1,800 impressions a day. Now I want you to think about, what would it be like if your phone rang 1,800 different times throughout the course of a day? That'd probably be pretty overwhelming, wouldn't it? You'd probably start to tune it out. Well, imagine if it was more than 5,000. Actually, recent studies are showing that that number today is over 10,000 impressions. Now, when I'm talking about impressions, that is the number of times that somebody is tapping on the back of your brain saying, hey, would you pay attention to me? Hey, I've got something you need to know about. Hey, I think you should buy my stuff. More than 10,000 times. Well, with that being said, today's buyer, they just get pretty overwhelmed with what's going on. So that often causes them to perhaps engage with you, but then get stuck. And we're going to talk today about how you can help move them when they do get stuck. It used to be we had this impression of customer experience that began with their relationship with us. And I want to share with you today that your buyer journey begins long before they ever even hear of you. So the buyer journey begins when they start to experience a problem in their life or their business, and then they start to work through the process of understanding what the issues are, the challenges are, figuring out what options they want to pursue, and then make a decision that, hey, I heard about company XYZ, and I think they might have something that would help me. So understand that this process is more than 2/3 of the way done before they ever even reach out to you. So a big shift that has been made today is the amount of time or that window of opportunity that you have to connect with your perfect buyer. It used to be you had the luxury of time. You could wait a little bit before you would actually reach out. No longer, my friend. Now you need to reach out and connect with someone within hours, if not minutes, of them submitting an inquiry or reaching out to connect with you. It's no longer about, well, I don't want to appear too eager. Well, right now, if your sales team isn't eager and jumping on those opportunities, that's one of the first places for you to plug leaks in your funnel. And now let's talk about a few of the other areas that your customer experience has the potential to lose things. I want you to envision, as you look at this map, I want you to envision the customer experience as a relay race. So this is, at each one of these handoffs is the opportunity to drop the baton, and then the race is lost. So customer experience is about having a great kickoff, getting the entire team engaged to deliver the fantastic solution, ensuring that operational specialists are brought to the table, that people are excited and engaged to work with, that you've got a success team that's working there along with to ensure that they are implementing your products to the best of their ability. And then the best way to ensure that you have an incredible customer experience, well, it's continue to sell them more stuff. Because the more engaged your customer is with your solution, the more likely they are to be delighted with the entire experience. And to that end, many organizations miss the fact that customer experience is owned by every aspect of the organization. Oftentimes it's relegated to marketing, or it's owned by the customer success team, or whoever it might be that's the customer service. But actually, we want there to be that process that is as smooth as if they're running a race and there's no interruption. So think about what it's like when you're watching a relay race that's being run by top athletes. You often find that they don't stop and hand off the baton. The next person is already running and is pacing when that baton is passed over. And that's what I want you to think about as it relates to your customer experience. Ensure that as that baton is passed, each person is paced by their partner so that it's a seamless transition from one aspect of the organization to the next without an interruption. Because when you stop, that is going to impact the customer experience and it's going to add the length of time to their transformation that they desire in working with you. And we don't want that to happen. So let's talk about the path and how you're going to create an incredible customer experience throughout your operation. And with this, I want to share with you a concept that is critical. So understand, whenever you are undertaking organizational change, it's a lot of work. I'm just going to tell you that right now. There's nothing that I'm talking about today that's easy. And I could tell you how much it cost that distribution company to identify exactly what that one small problem was, and it was not a minimal expense. It was a $17 million company, and it was six figures that it cost them to get to the bottom of what their challenge or their issue was. So there is nothing that I'm going to talk about that's easy. But with that being said, there are things that you can do that are going to create a quick win within your operation. And I want you to listen for those quick wins during our conversation today, because those are things that you can take back that will have an immediate impact versus game-changing solutions. The game changers, those are the things that are going to completely transform how your business operates and the results that you're experiencing. A few examples of what the quick wins versus game changers are. And you're going to want to make sure that you come back to this slide deck when you get the recording, because there are some really key insights here that can help you within your own business. So the first thing that I want you to understand is a quick win is recognizing who your perfect buyer is and ensuring that everything that you're doing is aligned with that perfect buyer. Engaging with a CRM, if you do not already have one. A CRM tool is a customer relationship management tool. So let me just get a quick show of hands. How many of you have a CRM currently in your operation? Anyone? Okay, so I'm hearing from a few of you that you do have, yeah, you've got a CRM. Okay, so now let me make it a little bit more complicated. How many of you are using it? Okay, well, a few of my hands went away. All right, so the thing about these tools, some of your quick wins may be implementing a CRM and using it. The other quick win that you can experience is exit interviews. And I'm not talking about exit interviews for your team members, but for your customers. And I'm going to talk more about that here in a few minutes. Also recognize that where your buyer gets stuck, and this is why a CRM is powerful, when you identify where your buyers are getting stuck within their own buyer journey and not engaging with you, that's when you can create content assets or steps that would add value to their experience with you so that they understand what it costs them each and every day that they delay on taking action and incorporating your product into their organization. Your big wins, those big transformations, those happen when you define and improve your sales process, when you ensure that marketing is aligned within your sales funnel, when you have systems in place to capture data to be able to make better decisions about your business, and you can act on it quickly. And the biggest one is when you engage your team and you have everyone feeling a sense of ownership with that client experience. Oops, I don't know why it's not. There we go. All right. So now let's talk about alignment, the buyer journey to the customer experience. Who is it that is your perfect buyer? And I want you to recognize that when you're aligning your buyer journey, what I want you to keep in mind is the platinum rule of the client experience. Now, y'all are probably pretty familiar with the golden rule, right? You've heard that before? Okay, so that one is treat people the way you want to be treated. Well, the platinum rule of client experience is to treat them the way they want to be treated. So now knowing that, who is it that you're going to treat in the way of the perfect buyer? Because I hate to tell you this, there is a rule called the Pareto principle that is, you're probably more familiar with it as the rule of 80-20. And that's 80% of your income probably comes from 20% of your clients. And that's the top 20% of your clients. Just like 80% of your problems probably come from the bottom 20% of your clients. So the 80-20 rule exists, and I encourage you, one of your nuggets or gems that I want you to take out of today is to go back and look at your client base and ensure that you have segmented and are focusing on those top relationships that recognize the biggest contributors to your revenue. And in one case, a client that we worked with that was in the insurance and financial services industry discovered that it was a 95-5 percentage, where 95% of their revenue came from 5% of their clients. So that number was pretty big. So you want to make sure that your client experience is designed to that perfect buyer. So you may have that bottom buyer that you discover all they want is a quick turnaround on their proposals, an immediate quote. They've got high expectations, but they're not willing to pay for anything. Well, you don't want to design your customer experience around that buyer. You want to design it around the buyer that recognizes value and is happy to pay you for the value that they're experiencing in working with you. Now, the other thing that I want you to think about, and it relates to creating an onboarding experience, because that is one of the most critical elements to your client experience, is the onboarding process. And the onboarding process is one that I have to confess a lot of businesses struggle with, even to the extent that like I think it was Glassdoor that did a survey of companies that with hiring people, so you're bringing on employees, more than 75% of companies had an inadequate onboarding process for employees, and 25% of those had no onboarding process in place at all. So with that being said, people struggle with understanding exactly what that onboarding looks like. So I encourage you to think about what success looks like. So do a little bit of reverse engineering on the client experience of a perfect client and recognize the steps that happened in order to create that perfect client. Because what you're going to find is that the successful outcome at the end of it for the client and the end of it for you is a delighted client. And then you can more easily map the actual customer experience that they had. And what you probably discover is that at different points of the customer experience with you, there is an inflection point. And that inflection point looks like that upward trajectory. Normally it takes place somewhere along when that baton is transferred. And it's normally reflected by how well the next stage of your operation is pacing the client and whoever it is that is handing off the baton. And then with that, you can recognize what you need to measure. Because just like Peter Drucker said, if you can measure it, you can manage it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about KPIs a little bit later on. And as you're thinking about that inflection point that takes place, there is always a spiral that's happening within relationships. That spiral is either upward, where you've got those inflection points, or it is downward, where there are constraints that are created. And I want you to recognize where those constraints are happening, because those constraints are things that are affecting the customer experience overall. So what it might look like, and it may even be something slight. It may be how long it takes your website to load, or if they can actually find information about your specific products that they're looking for on their mobile device, or is your site mobile enabled? So, I mean, these are little things to you, but they could be big things to your buyer that make them click away from the Google search that turns you up and takes them to one of your competitors. So those are just a few of the things that can create friction. Another area that you can create friction is how quickly people respond. If someone has an order or an inquiry about a product, if they're not responded to quickly, that's another point of friction that can come up. So these are all things that in order to discover them, this is where exit interviews are very powerful. So what I want you to do is think about who were your lost deals over the previous 90 days. And now when you're thinking about lost deals, I don't mean every lost deal. I mean the lost deals that you really felt. The people that fit that ideal prospect profile. Because remember the 80-20. Those ideal clients look like your ideal prospects. There's a strong resemblance to each other, and they behave similarly as well. And those undesirable prospects, well, you're going to find that they kind of bear a lot of resemblance to each other as well. But I would like for you to reach out and survey some of those lost deals that you ended up not winning. And when I say I want you to do it, I'm assuming that if you're on the call, you are an executive within your organization that has the power to make changes. If you're not, this is something that you may want to go to the VP of sales, the director of operations, or the CEO and suggest these calls are made by someone that is in a position to really listen and elicit that candid feedback about, I really want to make my organization better and I need your help to do that. Because people love to help. And I can also share with you that these are powerful conversations for you to have that may actually win you business in the future. So I want you to schedule an interview to discover why they elected to not go with you or why they left you. And then when they're willing to invest that time, I want you to send them a handwritten thank you note with a very specific, I appreciate that you did this for me. And then also give them a gift card. And I'll tell you that this is one of the, it's not only a gem, this is a diamond from this presentation. So this can deliver one of your biggest wins from the investment of your time that you've made with us today, is incorporate the exit interviews to understand why not only are you not getting the business, but why would you potentially lose it? Because this is such valuable insight for you to capture, because once you have the information, you can actually do something about it. Now the next, and remember I talked about quick wins versus game changers. I gave you a quick win, now let's talk game changers. Because when you align that client experience or that onboarding process into the buyer journey, and you align it with what your buyer wants to experience. So imagine this slide is the roadmap for how you create that platinum experience, that platinum rule of treating others the way they want to be treated. So if you think about during the buyer journey, they are trying to understand exactly what their issues even are. They don't know where it's affecting them. They don't understand exactly how it's affecting them, what it's costing them. So this is where it's critical that you have marketing in place that is capturing them when they're first starting their discovery process. Because if you don't capture them at that moment, your competitor and the market as a whole has first bite of the apple with that prospect to give them whatever information they are choosing to in order to shape the client experience in their direction. When they start to explore options, you need to ensure that you've got an immediate response. Now, some of you may even have bots or chat bots that you have on your website. There's a lot of people that hate those. I'm telling you, they can be pretty doggone cool if you have trained them properly and it's a quality experience. There's so many things you can do with technology. When you're starting to talk about that, you know, more than 90% of buyers are going to reach out and talk to somebody else and say, what did you do when? And at that point, that's when you want to make sure that you've got that social proof, you've got those reviews, so that you're immediately starting to build that relationship based on a common experience or common relationship. When they're assessing solutions, you need to make sure that you are effective at helping them recognize exactly where and how you're going to address the need. And that is not leading with feature benefit presentation. It's leading with transformation stories or case studies, or helping people recognize how amazing the community of your customers is and makes them excited to join. So, and you can work through each and every one of these to make sure that what the buyer is experiencing, you are lining up on your customer experience side, because it's so critical. I'm telling you, you don't have weeks to turn around proposals. You may have days. It used to be weeks, and people would wait around for you. They don't wait around. They move on to something or someone else. And now also understand that sometimes the timeline isn't just right for them. And this is where it's critically important that you are nurturing them with your content and email marketing. I'm telling you, if you haven't jumped onto that bandwagon, it is probably one of the most effective ways that you can nurture relationship, reduce the amount of time spent required by your sales team. And I mean, let's be honest, salespeople typically aren't the best at follow-up anyway. I mean, 95% of them don't even follow up past the third attempt. And that's just the nature of, they only have so many hours in their day, and they're going to invest their time where they get the biggest bang for their buck. And that's the commission check that's going to happen the fastest for them. So this is where your email marketing needs to fit in. And let me just tell you, the email marketing, most recent studies, it's delivering a 38-to-1 ROI. So let me ask you this. Give me a show of hands. How many of you would give me $1 if I promised to give you back 38? Are y'all okay? Okay, I got a few of you who are still with me. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that you're still listening, because I got to tell you, sometimes when you're doing these presentations, it kind of feels like you're all by yourself. So I appreciate it. And I'm glad to know that at least a couple of you consider 38-to-1 a pretty good ROI. I know I did, and it makes such a huge impact. Okay, so now let's talk about the bottlenecks or places where people get stuck. So I think I asked you if you had a CRM. I think, we talked about that, didn't we? Okay, so I've talked about a CRM. If there's nothing else that you take out of today, recognize that CRMs are really, really, really important. So a CRM will tell you where you are having bottlenecks or obstacles in your client experience. Now, the CRM is going to tell you if you have opportunities that come into your funnel and they stay forever at one stage, or they stall out, or they expire in terms of timing. They may time out with some CRMs. Those are all avenues that's where you go and spend time, effort, and resources to research where they're happening. Because when you identify what those obstacles are, that's when you can really start to think about how you can keep more people in the funnel and how you can move them through a little faster. So let's talk about what can go wrong and where people can get lost. And I know this slide looks the same as one that we did a little bit ago, but it's different. Because what happens often is when the issue presents, they may not be able to find you. You may not have any content out there. And then they receive wrong or misinformation. Who knows? They may be going to Chat GPT and putting in the asking this question that comes back with an answer that is not quite right. I don't know about you, if you've ever asked Chat GPT some of these questions about your business. If you haven't done it, go do it, because you can understand what the misunderstandings are about your business. Or they start to talk to other people about you and your solution, or about solutions for problems that you can solve. So, and they can't find you on social. There are so many different places. Maybe you've got your messaging is aligned to that buyer that's in the bottom 20%, and you aren't even talking to the right buyer, or they don't get followed up with in a timely manner and trust is lost. There are so many different things that can happen, and that's why it's important that you capture the information to know exactly what you need to focus on, because otherwise you're just shooting in the dark, and we don't want to do that. We want to be strategic about the changes that are made, and don't fix it if it ain't broke. I mean, focus on the stuff that you really need and can quantify exactly what the information is and how you can also improve. Now, if you're multitasking, I want you to click away from Facebook, whatever it is that you're doing, and I want you to come back to me, because this is a very important point that I want you to make. The thing about your customer experience, your new clients can give you the best information about how you can make the process better. So I'm going to share something with you. You don't have this in a slide. You don't have this anywhere except what I'm going to tell you. You're going to want to come back to the recording for this, because I'm going to give you the magic interview for how you conduct a new client review. And what I want you to do is I want you to survey your customers within the point where they're feeling the biggest positive impression of working with you. So if you think about it, like with my solution, I know that by 30 days, people are pretty excited. I also know that at 60 days, your salespeople don't like me very much. And then by 90 days, I know that we have made it past that hard work of refining the plan, and now everybody's starting to get excited again because we're seeing the impact and the results. So I know that there's a magic moment at 30 days, and I know there's a great moment at 90 days, because that's when revenue is starting to hit. That's going to be when I pick the moment. I'm either going to do it at 30 days or 90 days to have this new client review. I'm not doing it right after somebody engages with me, because they don't have enough time to really reflect on the impact that I've made to them in their operation. So now let me tell you what your new client review is going to consist of. You are going to have a series of open-ended questions that you ask, where you ask them, why did you select us? And you want to get specific information about what it was about your product or your solution that they wanted compared to what the competitor had. And then the next question you're going to ask is, did we deliver? Okay? Are you still with me? I want to make sure you're still here. Because question number 2, this is when you determine if there is something that needs attention. And if the answer is, heck yeah, this is fantastic, then continue on to question number 3. If the answer is no, address why and immediately fix it. Question number 3, if the answer was heck yeah, is what was unexpected and what was above and beyond what you experienced in working with us. And then they're going to give you some really good information about your value proposition. And then you can ask the next question, which is, what did you wish we would have done? Or how could we have made the process better? And this is great information for you to capture. And as you're doing this, you're going to be capturing this information. You're going to also help them wrap their arms around and quantify the additional value that they've experienced. And then you can capture that information and then immediately ask for a referral. You can ask it in a way that says, who do you know who would benefit from a similar experience? Or my absolute favorite is, if you've got your CRM enabled for this, you have a call recording function on it that allows you to drop that review or the results of that interview into a transcription that you can then stick into ChatGPT and ask them to turn that into a Google review or a case study. And they do a magnificent job of turning that information around that you can then ask the client to share, so that you've got amazing reviews that your client doesn't have to go to the work of thinking about it. This is how you can immediately start to bolster that social proof. That's another gem, folks, I want to share with you, is the use of ChatGPT in terms of capturing this information is pretty incredible. Okay, so did everybody get that interview process? Did you capture that? Wave your hand. Let me know if you got it. Okay, question number 1, why did you hire me? Number 2 is, did we deliver? Number 3 is, what was unexpected? Number 4, what did you wish we would have done? And number 5 is, who do you know? So those are your real quick client review questions. Easy for me to say. Okay, all right, and moving on, if it will cooperate. Okay, now the results of this interview. The thing about doing this interview, you're going to get some amazing insights. You need to capture those insights, bring them back into your organization, and do something about it. Now, let me give you an example of what you can do about it. One of my clients was a bank, and they had just recently merged with another organization. When they made this merger, they knew that they had good systems and processes from both of these operations, and they didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just choose things willy-nilly. So they did surveys within their clients to discover what each organization did incredibly well. They then created a change committee, and the change committee was made up of people from marketing, from sales, from operations, from customer service, from finance and accounting, as well as the senior leadership of the organization. And in this change committee, they would put up a list that had all of these things that were discovered about what we're doing well, what do we need to do better. They created a list. And then from this list, they were then able to prioritize the quick wins versus the game changers that they could then do something about. The key to this was the change committee, because they owned the results. They were accountable for it. This wasn't the boss came in and said, I got to do this. This is the team owned the transformation and the results. And it was something that they could get behind and get excited about. Through this, they were able to construct the champions for change. And it became a big deal to be a part of this. And this is where, instead of you trying to force change on your people, your people are bringing change to you. And I'll tell you, if you've got a workforce that is made up of different generations, so if you've got boomers, if you've got Gen Xers, if you've got millennials, understand that recognition and acknowledgement and gratitude are some of the most effective approaches you can have. So a lot of people think that to engage your workforce right now, it's about throwing more money at them, and it's not. Understand that 4 out of 5 times people leave bosses, they don't leave organizations. So if you acknowledge and recognize and reward the behavior that you're looking for, that's the behavior that's going to be repeated over and over and over. And I'm going to give you another example here of an organization that figured this out. Another client that I worked with that was in the banking industry. So I had a lot of banks that I was working with one year. They figured out something that was way cool. They created that same change committee. And what they did is the owner, or not the owner, the sales leader, who's actually the COO, had a affinity for vehicles. He was a real gearhead. And this was about the time that Pixar movie Cars came out. And I don't know if anybody watched. Did anybody watch Cars? I know my friend Darren did, who's on the call. He's the one that reminded me of which one it is. Okay, you saw Cars. So if you remember the Piston Cup Award, that was what the whole movie was about, was winning the Piston Cup Award. Well, what this leader did is he created a Piston Cup Award that was voted on by the employees for who it was that was going to receive it. So during their weekly staff meetings, everybody had the opportunity to vote on who they felt had the most positive impact on the client experience, and that person was in line for the Piston Cup Award. And the person that received the most votes during the course of a month would receive the trophy the next month and be acknowledged. And he also did some other fun stuff with them, but none of it was really expensive. It was more the bragging rights of having the Piston Cup trophy that got them super excited. So as you're hearing, it's really important that when you start to think about customer experience, you understand that you got to break down silos. That is one of the most important things to do in order to have an incredible customer experience. You have to recognize that at each point that there's that baton that's passed, that's an opportunity for something to get dropped and someone to feel as if they're not recognized or they're not acknowledged or not feel a part or not care. And you may have some people that just flat don't care. And then that's part of why it's important for you to understand the behavior you're looking for so that you can hire for it. So this is one of those slides that I encourage you to come back to when you're reviewing the recording, because these are all avenues for you to experience your own quick wins and your own game-changing solutions. And I'm covering a whole lot of ground, and I want to make sure that I get through everything. So you are going to want to come back to this, though, and spend some time on this, because I will tell you this is where things often get broken. Now, I want to share with you, when you're thinking about creating this incredible customer experience, it is important that you understand what those metrics are. And I want to share with you the concept of KPIs. And some of you may be very familiar with KPIs as key performance indicators. So how many of you have KPIs tied to your customer experience? Got a few of you? Okay, got a few that are still working. Okay, and that's fair, because this is also something that tends to be one of those moving targets that it often shifts. So a few of the KPIs that can exist around this also involve gamification. So this is where you can have leaderboards and recognize the people that are your big winners in the customer experience or in creating that customer experience. So let me give you an example here real quick that'll help you tie this together. So one of my customers was a general contractor that did service calls for multifamily housing organizations. So think big, massive apartment complexes. And their tickets would be anywhere from somebody fixing a hole in the drywall or a leaky faucet all the way up to restriping a parking lot. Now, they discovered that, and their KPIs and everything that were in place were using the Net Promoter Score. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more here in a few minutes. But they had it in place where when the Net Promoter Score averaged 9 and 10, there was a bonus pool that was available for the techs that had achieved that level on average. And then there was a survey done by their customer success manager that she would call them 3 days after the visit to the client to ensure that everything went the way that it was supposed to go. And then she asked them the question on a scale of 1 to 10, would you recommend us? Well, they consistently experienced 9 and 10s. That was the way it worked, except for this one property manager that just kept dinging the techs. And it was different techs that she would ding. So they couldn't get to the bottom of this because why was it this one person that didn't like them? So finally, the service manager went out one day and he said, I don't understand what we're missing with you, but I want to fix it. So talk to me about how we can improve. And she said, well, you guys are great. You show up on time. Your pricing is fantastic. Your techs are courteous and friendly. Your quality of work is done. I just wish you wouldn't leave the job site such a mess. Well, this really shocked him because, first of all, they would bring everything in off of a van and they didn't leave anything behind. So he couldn't understand where the leaving the job site a mess was coming from. And she said, well, let me show you. So she took him back to the dumpster and there were boxes stacked beside the dumpster that had been left by other contractors. So they were getting dinged for something that was completely beyond their control. So he brought that information back, presented it to the team, and the team came back and said, well, how about if we incorporate it into all of our customer visits of we swing by the dumpster and we break down any boxes that are there. And they started doing that. It was just one of those things that they'd take an extra 10 or 15 minutes at the end and go by and just make sure that they even cleaned up after other people. So as you can imagine, that got people pretty excited about, wow, okay, I can own something and have an impact and come up with the ideas. Because let me tell you, when your people own a solution, they are much more inclined to actually incorporate it into their business. Now, where do we start? This is another one of those slides that there's a lot of information that you're going to want to come back to. The most immediate place that you can have an impact is stopping the leaks in your funnel. So this is where you recognize where are people stalling out or people falling out, or where are you losing them? So those exit interviews and the client reviews are your quick hits. They're going to tell you so much information. Another avenue is identifying those, let's call them the undeveloped revenue streams. I don't know if you're surprised to hear this, but an existing customer, even if they're dormant, is 5 times more likely to buy from you than a new client. So I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty good opportunity. Remember I told you I would tell you about underdeveloped revenue? It's right here, folks. It's sitting there in your dormant clients and the people that haven't been contacted for upsell opportunities. You need to identify where can you add even more value to the relationship, and you can open the door with one of those great client reviews. You can also ensure that your messaging is aligned with your perfect client. So look at that 80-20. Identify those top 20% of your clients and make sure that everything that you're doing is geared to them and creating the experience that they're looking for. If you don't currently have sales enablement in place, and sales enablement is part of that CRM. So a CRM, customer relationship management, Sales enablement allows you to create automation. It basically, think about it like everything your salespeople struggle to do, that follow through, that consistent follow up. There's not enough hours in the day. I've got too many people to connect with. Not everybody's ready to buy right now. Sales enablement tools allow you to connect and stay top of mind with them and follow through consistently. And it is just a matter of you put the client information into the CRM and it happens auto-magically. And then as the lead score comes up, and that happens when that prospect clicks through content, looks at your website, does certain actions, then and only then does your salesperson need to reach out. That's how you can leverage your people talent along with technology to get the biggest bang for your buck. Your game-changing solutions are all around improving your sales process, alignment between marketing and sales, having analytics in place and making sure that you're doing something with that information, focusing on the improvement areas and having the plan in place in order to actually make change, creating that culture of continuous improvement across all service areas. These are all things that can have a tremendous impact within your current operation. Now, when you think about defining the client experience, I talked to you about this a little bit earlier. I want you to really spend the time making sure that your buyer journey is aligning with the client experience. Anything that is a repetitive slide, it's on here because it's very, very, very important, okay? So if you're multitasking, make sure that you are coming back to this alignment piece to make sure that your buyer journey aligns with the client experience of your perfect buyer. Now, I promised to talk to you about scorecards and KPIs. That which gets rewarded gets done, okay? And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And that is what these two factors are all about. Make sure that you are aligning your performance expectations and creating accountability around the things that really are going to cause results to happen. And now Net Promoter Score. I promised you I was going to talk about this. So the Net Promoter Score is a metric that's used to measure customer satisfaction. And it's based on asking a single question. And that's on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend our product or service to another customer? And then based on their results, they then fit into whether they would be promoters or whether they're going to be passives or detractors. And this gives you your Net Promoter Score that can impact so many things about how you measure and manage that customer experience. Okay, let's make sure things are going to keep moving. Now, how can we help you get all this done? Because hopefully I've provided value to you. Have y'all gotten some good ideas so far? Give me a show of hands if you're still with me. Let me know if you're still awake. Okay, good. All right. Are you learning something? Are you getting some good ideas that you want to take back? Okay. All right. Now, the challenge with a lot of these things that I'm bringing to you, you may think about, okay, this is really cool, and I want to put them to work in my business, and that's awesome. The challenge is, if you've never done it before and you've never been down this path, it may feel a little bit intimidating or overwhelming to think about how you're going to wrap your arms around it. Well, the reason I'm doing this presentation today and why I was invited by KMS and why I love to meet with business leaders like you is I want to help you recognize the power with fractional executives, because a fractional executive can be arm in arm with you, providing you with the roadmap, the framework, the methodology that's been developed through their experience in working within really big companies, accomplishing really big goals. And let me tell you, you don't need 100% of them, but 10% of them can make a tremendous impact on your organization. And I'd love to share with you a couple of examples of professionals that can support you during this process. And what you do when you engage with a fractional executive is you prioritize what your need is and where you can have the greatest impact. In the email that you received yesterday, there was a link that you could go to where you can do just a brief self-assessment of where you are at with your customer experience and determine if it's sales and marketing. Is it specifically sales? Is it specifically marketing? Is it order fulfillment? Is it order entry? Is it something in your ERP system? Is it operations? Is it finance? There are so many of these things that you just might be missing slight pieces of. Others may be some big things that you need to focus on, and it's an immediate priority. Based on what that priority is, comes to the top, then you can determine who you want to talk to first. And how you would engage with a fractional executive is with an initial discovery conversation where you would discuss your priorities and determine where do you need help now. And then you can, from there, develop what the right plan is. And when we're talking right size, it could be a quarterly conversation you have with a fractional leader. It could be monthly. It could be weekly. It may be you actually want them to come in and support you in a project management role because you've got the potential for some game-changing results, in which case you may need a little bit more help in order to get there. And through this, they will help you with identifying the right systems that are going to capture, monitor, manage, and continue to oversee the operation and ensure you continue to get the results you're looking for. So you have the opportunity to take a look at that pre-work. If you didn't, we'll make sure that we send it out along with the follow-up, the recording for this session, the slide deck. You'll also have access to that self-assessment form. And then we would also encourage you to connect with KMS. KMS has a strategic alliance partner program where we connect with them and they connect with other organizations to help you identify the specific areas that you need help and bring you vetted resources that can help now. So, and these are folks that are proficient and experienced in working with manufacturers. Some examples, we've got our friend Darren, who gets brought in by private equity groups to transform organizations, increase enterprise value and profitability. And let me tell you, he's really good at it, as well as being a car buff that knows cars. We've got Angela, who is a phenomenal sales leader and has led organizations small and large to achieving incredible results. One of my biggest, I'm such a fan of Nikki's results. She helps manufacturers incorporate e-commerce solutions and ensure that their website becomes your best salesperson. We've got Kathy, who is our CRM expert. She's absolutely incredible at ensuring that the CRM solution actually lines up with what it is that you are looking to achieve. And then, of course, we've got on the human resources side, because nothing happens until your people get excited and buy into your solution. So we have two experts here that we'd like to share with you. We've got Dr. Sean Foley, who focuses on workforce transformation. And then Wade Freeman is a people specialist who really understands how to get people excited and engaged within your culture. And I want to say thank you. You guys have been absolutely incredible to stay with me for as long as you have, because trust me, I know these virtual meetings have a tendency to get a little bit long, and hopefully I haven't put you to sleep during the time that we've been together today. And I got to tell you, I got 2 minutes to spare, so I am pretty pumped about having a couple of extra minutes to chat with you. So we've talked about all kinds of stuff. And I want to hear from you about what some of your specific questions are, what some of your challenges are, and let me invite my experts to join in on the conversation. So come on, let's hear from everybody. Okay, wait a minute. What was the surprise? The surprise was having 2 minutes to spare. Okay, so the special offer that you get. Oh, thank you so much for reminding me. All right, so what you get as a special offer is I want you to connect with KMS based on your priority of what the issue is or challenges that you've experienced. I want you to then connect with the resource, and then our offer is you will have a 30-minute discovery conversation with them that there's no obligation. It's about $150 value, and they're going to bring their best brainstorming and ideas to the table to help you know what to focus on. So I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty cool offer. So I want to encourage you to take advantage of that. So, and to get a hold of them, Phil, can you make sure that you provide us the information so that they can connect
Yeah,
with
for sure.
KMS?
Yeah, and actually we'll be following up after the call so that we're connecting with them for sure.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. So, all right, tell me a little bit more about this. The 80-20. Phil, can you see the rest of that question from Scott?
Yes. So as said, I love the 80-20 deal. Could you repeat the second line about 80% of the problems?
Yes. Okay. So just like 80% of your profit or your revenue comes from 20% of your clients that are the top 20%, you will often find that 80% of your problems come from the bottom 20% of your clients. So that's really important for you to look at when you are evaluating the profitability of your clients, because you may have high revenue clients that also are your lowest margin. I got to tell you, there's been a number of clients that I think many of us have worked with that have had to fire big clients because they ended up paying to do business with them, which instead of the client paying them. So that wasn't so great. Okay. Yes. Yes, it is. Okay. All right. So we've got some questions. Phil, you want to throw some questions out for our folks?
I do. So how do I educate, train my people and staff on CX concepts relevant to their role?
Oh, Darren, I think that one's right up your alley. Oh, wait, you're muted.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Phil?
Sure, I'd be happy to. It says, how do I educate, train my people on CX concepts relevant to their role?
Okay. Well, it's an interesting question. I think that the customer experience is relevant to everyone's role. And in terms of the training that needs to happen in order to emphasize and improve that, it's a systematic approach where you have to put in procedures and processes so that there's transparency throughout the organization. Communications need to flow from your customer through sales to your operations. Everyone needs to be on the same team. So there is a clear appreciation for impacts of every single operation through the process, through the workflow from order entry all the way through to delivery. And everyone understands their contributions towards that. So it's a philosophy. Your leadership also needs to get involved, or if you are the leaders, in terms of addressing any kinds of hostilities or compartmentalization between departments. As a matter of fact, you should eradicate departments because just the nature of departments causes an implicit conflict. So everyone needs to be on the same team and they need to be rewarded based on things that they're directly controllable in their direct control, in addition to the company's success overall. So there needs to be mutual KPIs for that. So it's a program that has to be implemented to make sure that everyone's on the same page, the customer comes first, and that their efforts is to satisfy that customer experience so that they retain them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And I don't know if this is for you, Darren, but we have a similar question about, how can we align our culture to prioritize customer experience?
So it's the same thing. I mean, in terms of there are methodologies out there. There are, there's a great book written by a guy by the name of Jack Stack. He does not cook any barbecue. He wrote a book called The Stake in the Outcome, where essentially you empower your entire organization to be rewarded for the success of the company. So it's a cultural thing. There's a lot of training. There's a lot of effort that is required in order to incorporate that kind of philosophy. It comes from the top down. Leaders have to be
Yes.
enlightened and understand that they need to share this information for their teams to be, empowered to be able to do their best.
Oh, true. Another question is, none of our business comes through our website, so why should I invest in digital marketing?
Oh, Nikki. Wait, you're muted. Why can't we hear you?
All right, sorry, I was muted.
Right.
Yeah, that could be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. No, none of the business is coming through your website because you don't have a good online presence. But I would suggest that what I find sometimes as I'm talking to prospects or just, other friends who are executives, I think there's this thought that digital marketing and online presence, e-commerce is really kind of a B2C focused, tactic. And the thing is, 89% of B2B buyers go online to do research when they're looking at making a decision. And a Harvard Business Review report said 75% of those B2B buyers will end up choosing the company that was the first to add value. So, Bringden talked about how 2/3 of their decision-making process is done before they even talk to somebody at your organization. So as they're asking those questions and going through the process, do you have content available that helps answer their questions, provides value? Look at your website and the content there relative to your competitors. If they're looking at 2 or 3 or more different vendors to maybe partner with, how does your website represent your culture and your value and the quality of your product or service? And a lot of times it's not reflective if you haven't really invested in keeping that up. So it's brand reputation, brand awareness, and then also facilitating that buyer's journey. And then the last point I'll make is I have helped a few manufacturers actually develop e-commerce capabilities within their website. And so if it's, they're only selling through distributors or resellers and you have to be qualified before you're able to do that, then we can put that behind a login and make it a portal. But those same customers, of yours that are in a B2B environment are also consumers out on Amazon and other places in their personal life, and that's how they prefer to do business. And so as they're doing business with you, how do we make that as easy as possible? And different people will have different preferences, but I think what we're finding is more and more that preference is to be able to self-serve via the internet.
Great, thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, go ahead. Hang on real quick. One thing I want to piggyback on top of that is, if many of you, I don't know, and I'd love to see a show of hands, how many of you are challenged by finding amazing sales talent right now? And I mean amazing, like people that show up when they're supposed to, and they're great communicators, and they follow the process, and there's no drama involved. I mean, if you're challenged with finding those incredible people, and I got to tell you, a lot of organizations are, this is even more of a reason to ensure that your website is your best salesperson. And a lot of people think about building websites like sticking up a brochure on the internet and that's what it's for. It's not. What the website actually does is it acts as your best salesperson to attract and engage and build a relationship with your perfect buyer and support them all the way until they're ready to actually make a purchase transaction. And you can have so much of that process that is handled through your marketing so that the salespeople do what the salespeople do best, which is build relationships, address specific objections, interact, help create that trust. It lets them do what they need to do. So, and it allows you to scale so much with a lot less investment in direct employees. So, okay, I just wanted to add that. Okay, Phil, what was the other question?
Thanks. So should the 80-20 rule pertain to your employees also? Should we challenge ourselves to change out the bottom 20% of performers? We do customer grade cards and score their impacts to our business. So.
Oh boy. Oh my goodness. I think that is a resounding, I think that's a good idea. Darren, what would you add to that?
So I don't necessarily know whether it's a change out. You know, people have to be in the right seats. If you have talent and they're in the wrong seat, they're going to fail. But yeah, the Pareto principle does apply to virtually everything in terms of your business, even in terms of your sales force. So, you know, you'll find that 20% of your sales force bring in 80% of your business, but that
Yes.
additional 20% is still valuable. So you don't necessarily want to just change it out. You want to try and train, improve, mentor, work, coach with those folks so that they can shift those numbers around. But yeah, you should absolutely look at your staff in every department, identify the weakest links, train them. If there's not a good fit, yes, you should replace them. But you know,
Manage out.
absolutely.
All right,
Yeah,
great.
excellent point.
Yep. Our customers can get frustrated with defects, delivery delays, or communication challenges. How do we make these better to improve our customers' loyalty?
Darren, you want to run with that one as well?
Sure. So, you know, obviously, this is a very common question, specifically when it relates to small and medium-sized manufacturing companies. You know, putting aside the aspect that quality control needs to be improved and you need to improve your capacity planning to, you know, alleviate some of that negative feedback. Again, the issue has to do with communication. You do not want to overpromise and underdeliver. You want to do the other way around. You need to have that communication. You need to keep your customer in the loop. If there is an issue, they need to be a partner. The communication needs to go all the way from your customer to your operations, even to the floor if necessary. If there are issues, communication is vital. So it's a systematic thing again. There are policies and procedures that should be in place that if some event that is a measurable event is occurring, it gets elevated up the chain so that your salesperson, the person who has the relationship with the client, is communicating. And in addition to that, you know, you can have fast response aspects to meeting your customers' orders. So there are systems that need to be in place. And, you know, I don't want to harp on this. I've already mentioned it before, but from a departmentalization standpoint, you really don't want your sales guys pointing at your operations guy and say, they are messing it up, and your operations guys pointing at your sales guys and saying, they promised them something we just simply couldn't deliver. You know, that communication needs to be there from order entry. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Absolutely. Fantastic perspective. Okay.
Right.
Have we gotten all of our questions? This was a great conversation.
It was indeed. So, you know what? We might have time, I think, for one more. But it's rather broad in appearance. What strategies can we use to turn passive customers into promoters?
Ooh, Kathy, you want to take and run with that one? You're muted.
So a great way to do that is like Brendan talked about in this whole presentation, talking about marketing and content and staying top of mind through email marketing. It's having those early conversations with those who are looking for solutions, and then having a more seamless customer journey. And then when they become clients, then you can have that seamless journey continue all the way to the end, so that their entire customer journey, buyer journey, is just one that will make them raving fans.
So can you explain this just a little bit more also, Kathy, about what the possibilities are with understanding who are the people that are the most likely to buy?
The people,
and maybe that's a Nikki question too.
Yeah, I think that might be a Nikki question.
The people most likely to buy in terms of prospects or current clients?
Well, actually, I'm thinking current clients, because once they fit into your client base, I think then it becomes a matter of what do you do in order to keep them engaged and buying more? Because we know that if somebody starts with us, that if they're more likely to buy more, and the more they buy, the happier they get.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's a combination. So Kathy talked a little bit about staying in front of them with marketing, messaging. You talked about cross-selling and having that opportunity for more interaction, but focus on it being adding value to them versus trying to get another sell out of them. So
Yes.
How can you add value to, did they purchase something of yours that you might have some content or tips or tricks that will make it easier for them to use or to understand or get them up to speed? So there are a lot of things that you can do even kind of outside of marketing to make sure that you're providing a customer experience that's over the top. Another thing that I'll mention, and this isn't so much for the passives, but for those that aren't familiar with Net Promoter Score, if you do have detractors, which are those that are scoring you 6 or less, I believe that's, that's right. You're supposed to have a closed loop circuit to that. So that means they're providing you feedback and you're coming back and resolving that with those detractors to make sure, it's kind of bringing into your point when you're interviewing clients to understand what did we do well, what did we not do well. Yes. With NPS, you're getting that feedback from detractors of, what could we have done better? If they're giving that information to you, then it's worthwhile for a follow-up, so long as they are open to that and give their contact information to make sure that you can solve that for them.
The exit interview format would be great for that, by the way.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Phil. I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to present to your fantastic group of clients and friends. And it was wonderful to get to know everyone, and feel free to reach out and let us know any questions that you have, and then be sure and take us up on our offer to connect with KMS and have your 30-minute conversation with the subject matter expert.
Very good. Yep. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, team, for sharing your customer experiences and recommendations based upon your years of working in this field. And attendees, thank you for being engaged, and thank you for sharing the end of your day with us. So let's step forward with a commitment to excellence in every customer interaction. We've seen today the link between excellent customer experiences and increased revenue. Now is the time to act. So invest in your customer experience. Let's watch your top line revenue grow. So thanks again for attending today.
All right. Take care. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.